Well, we got some pineapple, fresh pineapple, cut today. Nothing like it. We got a cigar here, generously provided to us by Uncle Larry. Whenever guys send support to the channel, it doesn't go to waste. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate. Um, Sometimes where it's cigars maybe I haven't reviewed yet, or cigars I can't find or never heard of, or other times it's cigars that I reviewed but it's been a long time, and then coming back to them is like a nice reflection, and then looking at cigars in a different way, or maybe an extra second look at how to compare or contrast it to its competitors or itself or its own company. So there's so many ways you can look at cigars, and then you have price points, online price points, MSRP price points, and then gouge. Most cigars don't have a gouge. Pretty much, there's two extremes. If there's an online price, there's never going to be a gouge price. Every cigar has an MSRP, but it's one or the other. If it's, you're not going to have an MSRP, an online price, and a gouge price. Meaning you're never going to see Opus X. Okay, let's say it's $20 MSRP for a Robusto, Florida price. You might see gouge on the internet, maybe $25 a piece. Maybe some stores might, that in a state that doesn't normally get those, maybe they're trying to bang them out for $30, $35. In the city, sure, up to 40. It's a city area, it's a lounge with a bar, and like, yeah, $40 a stick. It is what it is. It's a hotel, tourist trap. But that's a very limited situation. But still, but a cigar that could be gouged like that on a regular basis, you're not gonna be like, or you could get them for $5 online. Like, no. So basically, every cigar has at least one price, MSRP. Some cigars have online pricing. That would give it two prices, MSRP and online. And then some cigars have gouge pricing. To get gouging, though, you have to be something really hyped, or even if it's been around for a while, like Opus X. You don't really see tons of gouging on Padron unless you're like in New York or whatever. But as far as a standard, like people on the secondary market, which is not a state issue because you could mail cigars across state lines. So you might see stuff that it's a new blend, and there's a shortage of the stores, so people were willing to pay more to have it shipped to their house, whatever. Maybe a new David off that, whatever. But that's still. But more than likely, there's more to situations of a price and an online price. Very few cigars have a gouge price. There's factors to it. It has to be limited, and it has to be something already expensive to be possibly put at a gouge pricing. So it is what it is. I can't stress it enough. But if you find something you enjoy, you can get it online for a lot cheaper than just smoking at home. Well, it is what it is. This is the pledge. This is the prequel. This is EP Carrillo. It's like the first EP Carrillo I really enjoyed. The original Encore, was that what it was? Good quality cigar. But I remember when I first had it, I really wasn't a fan. I didn't like the profile, and I came back to it, and I still, to this day, like, I'd rather smoke something else. I'm not shitting on EP Carrillo. The Encore, the regular, it's just not for me. The Pledge, I remember I bought it in Vermont, and then I brought it home to New York, and I smoked it a day or two later, and I remember being blown away. And it was a cool night, maybe like October, early November. I remember it was a crisp night, and I remember smoking like, wow, this cigar is going to be in the top 25. I knew from the first third the cigar was that good. I've had it sitting out for a couple of days, so got the band sliding, which is a good sign. When I did receive it, though, it was only one in the batch that felt combination of maybe one or two things. Either the cigar was too moist, or a combination of it's underpacked. If a cigar is very wet, it might seem like you could squeeze it, like, oh god, it's so soft. But I don't think it was really. It might have been a little moist, but I think it was really underpacked, and I think that's a factory issue. And I talked to Uncle Larry about that, and he says that this cigar has around 18 months he's owned it. So it has some time, which is nice. But all the other cigars are kept in the same humidor that he sent me, and none of them had a situation. So obviously, it's a factory issue as far as this being rather soft and underpacked. Not like detrimental, but interesting enough, like almost felt like, where a construction issue where the wrapper feels like it's not tight against the binder, and then it's almost like there's a little bit of a gap, and then it's like puffing out. So like right here, okay, right here, it's like can I see that? It's like I could push the wrapper down into like the binder. It's like right here, almost like. Can you see that or no? Anyways, so I'm not nitpicking on this cigar, but I like to pay attention to little details. So we'll smoke right through it, but maybe this cigar from the factory was made on a Friday at 4:59, if they have regular schedule there, which I don't know. As far as the wrapper though, it always had a unique dark looking wrapper with some interesting colors. Very oily looking wrapper, very wet looking, almost like it's coated with wax. It is a Connecticut / Habano seed, and it's not listed as a broadleaf. I don't know. Is it a Connecticut seed Habano Maduro though? I gotta look that last part up though. Yeah, so you don't see tons of Connecticut Habano. You see a lot of Connecticut broadleaf. But anyways, binder's Ecuadorian, which that's a unique combination, and then the filler is going to be Nicaraguan. So let's see, with almost 2 years of time, you got to factor in from the cigar. Yeah, definitely from the factory, and they're going to have aging rooms. And the time he bought it, it's not like he bought it right from the factory. So basically, from the time this thing was rolled, it's at least 2 years, let alone because he did 18 months, and then there's an aging room in between. So let's see what happens, man. Glad we talked about all these different things. Now, this cigar did win Cigar of the Year that year with a 98 rating, which is extremely high. I think what was interesting about the cigar is that how good it was and how low the price point was. Or I don't want to use the word low. The price point was realistic. When this thing came out, it was like $11. And you're like, wow, Cigar of the Year, #1. Of course, that's perspective, but I mean, still, like, I don't think you understand that even $11 for one cigar, there's still a lot of profit in it. That I think people were all just so used to, as they say in France, getting fucked. Oh, man. Come on now. Draw is very easy. If not almost open, but it's pulling, thank God. Hey, it's pulling. I like the dimensions. The cigar is very flat in the hand. The dimensions of the cigar, dare I say it, are very Padron-esque. This is a 5x50, but the way they box press this, it's very Padron-esque. And I'm not saying Padron is the first one to do a box pressing, but the shape they chose, and maybe people before them were doing that, like on the 26. So, but that being said, smooth off the bat. A lot of airflow on this cigar. Definitely with that little bit of softness in there. And yeah. Interesting. And I talked to Uncle Larry about this cigar with that situation. He said he doesn't believe he had that situation happen on the other pledges, which, EP Krill is a very good quality brand. And I feel that, but with any cigar, any brand, you could have a situation where one in the box maybe is the ugly one, or something that has some underpacking or soft spot. So it's definitely got a good soft spot right here, in almost in the middle, enough where also like it makes even as I'm smoking it now, I guess as the cigar's getting heat in it, like I can legitimately feel like the wrapper almost like a space between the binder, like, you know. So interesting. Now hopefully that doesn't not gonna affect the performance of the cigar, but I just pay attention to every little fucking detail. So if something all of a sudden gets my bat sense, and normally it doesn't happen when I smoke the pledge. So if anything, it's giving me something extra to talk about. And if you don't like it, I don't know, go back to watching, you know, what do you watch? Pornhub, like a loser? Help, I'm stuck in the laundry machine. You know how expensive laundry is, bitch? It's a medium plus off the bat. I want to give it a second. Because this is the first time me having the pledge with like time on it. And before I say anything what I'm tasting, I want to just give myself a second. $18 months from the time of purchase to the time of smoking. That's enough time to affect this cigar. You could say massively, but you could definitely say it's enough time to where it could change it. A little bit, a lot of it, you know, who knows. But it's definitely not a short time. You're not talking about a month or two. That could maybe, you know, as far as acclimation, but 18 months, you know, almost 2 years. Yeah, things could happen. There it is. I'll tell you what, and we'll see how it builds up. But this much time on this cigar, almost 2 years, as far as I can recall, it's coming in smoother than I can remember. But that's the funny thing. Like, it's been a while since I smoked the pledge, so I'd have to smoke one like right out the box, something that was made this year. You know, something made on a few, you know, released a few months ago, because so that we could remind myself of the original intent. Because it's very unlikely you go to a store and you're like, oh, we've had this box for 2 years and here's the cigar. Like, so yeah, but it's a unique way to looking at it. How time affects it is delicious. The last puff before it picked up. I'm at a heavy medium plus. It's a really unique nutty note, like rich chestnuts. Like, you know, when you have like Christmas chestnuts. I mean, I don't know, when I was a kid, my family would make chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Really, that's really nice. There's an ample amount of black pepper spice, but it's not as strong as I remember. So maybe the time on this calmed it down a little bit. We're going to see as it builds up. I'll come back. But the flavor is very rich, very long and heavy on the tongue. That I remember, though. But the flavor's different, I think, from first time having it. But maybe that much time on this made it something different. Mild chocolate coming in now. So a little bit of sweet chocolate, chestnuts, quite nice, quite nutty. A little bit of black pepper. There's definitely a good wood note mixed in there. Not a cedar, something a little hardier, but not as dark as like a charred wood. So not exactly, within wood notes, you have like, on the dark side, you have really charred wood, more mesquite, smoky charred wood. And on the light side, you have like bright cedar, and somewhere in between there, like cedar, and then maybe oak in between. So it's not a cedar, really like light cedar, and it's not charred wood, but definitely it's a nice wood note. So all in all, it has some nice depth, nice range. And all in all, I would say if you do have these, it's not going to be disappointing if you let them sit around for 2 years. It might change it though. Um, Let me give it one more second before I go and come back, because all of a sudden something just came in there. I'm like, hold on, let's see if that's just not a fluke. I feel like the cigar might start ramping up. It did. One time got my attention, second time confirmed it. I'm at medium full right there. So, okay, so maybe that time made the cigar take. Generally, when you age a cigar, obviously, my point, when you age a cigar, you give it time, it's going to affect the foot first more than here. I can't stress enough, and you could say bullshit, but then I'm going to call you bullshit, and then you have no proof, I have no proof. And then why are we yelling at each other? No one's paying us to yell at each other, so chill the fuck out. Leaves, stem side is generally going to go back here. The tip of the leaf is generally going to go in the front. The tip of the leaf has the least amount of nutrients. The hardier part of the leaf is going to be on the back side of the leaf, because the stem is connected to the plant, and the stem comes out, and you have the end of the leaf. Therefore, when you're aging a cigar, which is a combination of leaves, what part of the leaf is it's not gonna all age the same. Just like when you smoke a cigar, you get to the stronger part of the cigar, it's gonna produce more flavor and be more intense than the beginning. So I feel the same thing when it comes to aging, that the weaker part of the leaf is going to ferment or degrade faster. Just same concept as lighter shade cigars. The Connecticut shade cigars, most of the time they age Connecticut shade wrappers or Ecuador shade wrappers, year and a half to 2 years. Unlike, let's say, Maduro or darker wrappers, they take 4 or 5 years. The thinner leaves ferment faster. And so also I believe that within the leaf, the weaker part of the leaf will dissipate or turn faster, if that makes any sense. So what I'm saying is, if you have a cigar and you smoked it before many times, and but you have now you have one age, let's say 2 years, maybe the first third might be something different than you normally remember. Then it gets to the middle, and you're like, oh, that's what I remember what the cigar is. But if you age a cigar 10 years, that whole cigar's changed. You know what I'm saying? No, it's the same thing with you put in the dry box. You put a cigar in the dry box, unless you cut the cap, that foot, the first third's gonna dry out faster than the middle. Okay, etc. Okay, I just can't stress it enough. It is what it is. I'm finding this very pleasurable. I'm finding this extremely smooth. Not as dark or spice forward as I remember this. And I think time. I've never had an aged EP Carrillo, even though you say it's 18 months. So you got to figure he had to buy it though. So let's just all in all, from the time it actually was released from the factory and then went to a store or middleman and he bought it, whatever, it could be around 2 years from the time this was put in the box. Obviously post-rolled, I'm sure they do some type of aging, but it's definitely affected it enough to make me have a fresh look on this. I remember this cigar being more, I'm not saying the word dirty, but I mean more aggressive off the bat. But at the same time, if you smoke a cigar enough, there's times where most cigars are generally around the same experience every time you smoke it. But once in a while you catch a hot one that's just way stronger than normal. Sometimes you can catch like a squib load where you smoke a cigar and you're like, that's a lot weaker than I remember. So most of the time there's a range. If you smoke a cigar more than once, most of the time they're going to play with each other in the same kind of range, because they're pretty good about blending and trying to make the cigars all taste about the same. Once in a while you get something on the extreme, way stronger, and once in a while you get something way weaker. Once in a while. It's rare. I'm enjoying it though. Really creamy texture, really rich chestnuts, nice amount of black pepper spice, a nice mild chocolate sweetness, and like a rich, hearty but not dark smoked wood like charred wood, but more like an oak. So it's got a nice core profile with the medium full pushing it that it feels like a classy, semi-strong cigar with a long, heavy finish, which is always preferred if the cigar is tasting good. Well, great construction. It burned right through that soft spot. Great ash, no problems. I'm glad I brought up what I saw before I lit it. But just because you might see an abnormality before you light a cigar doesn't always mean it's going to be a problem once you light it. And just because the cigar looks like there's no issues before you light it, you never know. Kind of like people. When you always see in the news, he was a quiet neighbor. He was so nice. He used to take out my garbage pails. I didn't know he was barbecuing people. I didn't know he was chopping people. I had no idea. And then you get the other situations like, oh, we've been calling the cops on this guy for a long time. I'm surprised it took this long. So. Anyways, time to get rid of the ash. I will say this: it's only gotten a little stronger than before, but remember we're growing the ash, so we're going to taste the puff right now. Overall, it's been very delicious, but less potent than I remember on the original intent. And I've smoked it a few times, not a crazy amount, but more than 5. The pledge since it came out, and so that just means that about 2 years of original intent from the factory, and you go buy at the store. If you let this cigar sit for about almost 2 years, it could really affect the blend. I don't mean that in a good or bad way. It's just some cigars with just, I've had cigars that had 5 years of time on it, and it was still just as strong, maybe just a little smoother. But then there are other cigars I've had that only 2 years on it, like we had a Padron 64 that Dream Life sent me, and with only 2 years on it, it definitely took some of the balls away. And I'll say this on this cigar: with only 18 years on this pledge, 18 months on this cigar. Now, of course, that's when he bought it. Of course, whoever he bought it from him had it probably for who knows how long. But let's just even lowball it, say 2 years total from the time it left the factory. It's definitely lost a lot of balls that I remember the original intent. Unless I got one that just happened to be somehow, I would more err on time than EP Carrillo not being consistent. However, am I enjoying the cigar? Totally. And in my opinion, though, it's feeling like a almost totally different cigar. This, give or take around 2 years on the EP Carrillo pledge in this Robusto size box press. It's very nutty, but it's very like nice chestnuts. We got some rich wood, like more like oak, like a hearty wood note, and a nice amount of black pepper, and a nice milk chocolate note. Really not that much earth. So honestly, I remember reviewing the original one. The power, the darkness was darker. Right now, it's only about 70% darkness. I remember it being darker. I remember it being stronger. Even though it's around a medium full, right now it's a gentle medium full. I remember having like a funky, pungent, like sourdough or funkiness to the cigar, and not in a bad way. But I mean, I remember the original intent had like a funkiness to it. And I'll tell you what, you never know until you know. So apparently, if you give this cigar, about 2 years, you could possibly have, now of course, humidity is a factor too. If you're aging your cigars at like 60% humidity, the degrade of the tobacco is going to take more time than if you were aging it at 70%. The higher the humidity, time affects it more, and the higher temperature as well. Yeah, I feel like I'm smoking a totally different cigar. I am very enjoying it. This is just extremely smooth. It feels a lot classier than the original intent. The original intent was a dark, strong cigar that had some class to it, but the original intent was more ballsy. The original intent is more aggressive, and I'm not saying like AJ level aggressive, but it was a good balance between classiness and aggressiveness and strength and spice. But the original Pledge was quite a strong cigar, not a weak cigar by any standards. And after letting go of that big ash, I'm just going to touch up one little side. Doesn't need it, but I'm going to do it. So, should you age this cigar? If you buy a box, I don't know, how many cigars do you have? Maybe you smoke it once a month, and then over the course of 2 years to smoke the box, you'll get to have this experience. You don't have to age the Pledge to enjoy it. However, if it happens on purpose or by accident, don't let it get in the way. That will be enjoyed. However, though, it is a change. If this cigar had no band on it, I would have never guessed this was the Pledge. So clearly, 18 months to 2 years, give or take, around there, right? Because he didn't buy it right from EP Carrillo. It's not like Uncle Larry's like, "Yo, EP, I need a box of this," and he's like, "Here you go, my son." So obviously, he had it for 18 months from the factory floor to the time he got it. We could say it's a couple of months. Now, wouldn't it be crazy if he bought it, let's say, and it's been longer than that? What if the people he bought it from had it for a year or two? Those warehouses have a lot of stuff. You buy online, you never know. You could buy a box, and the box could have an extra year or two on it just because they have so much supply. Anything could happen, right? So the thing is this: the time affected the blend. Not in a bad way. This is not boring at all, but it's so much smoother and less ballsy than the original tent, but it has a more nutty, creamy, chocolatey texture to it that, but the intensity and the way it's hitting, in my opinion, it feels like a completely different cigar. I mean, really. So, should you age this cigar? Not if you want to keep the original intent. If you love the Pledge for what it is, when you buy that box, smoke it. If you say, hey, wherever the chips fall, as long as I smoke them, you want to give it 2-3 years, just enjoy the transition. Really quite delicious. I'm going to come back when I get to the nub, but I will say that at the time, this is a nice, small scientific experience. Well, very looming smoke. A nice scientific experiment that roughly around 2 years has affected this cigar enough to chill it the fuck out. Well, as promised, down to the nub. No issues with the draw. Smoking very nicely. I'm really surprised how around 2 years affected this blend. It's a medium to full, but it's a creamy milk chocolate, oaky type wood, long, heavy flavors. It has a creamy, oily, like buttery texture to it. Really not what I remember for the Pledge. So it's like, is this a Pledge, or did I even ever smoke the Pledge? Clearly, the original intent is a more robust, semi-funky type of, a little more, dare I say, almost not experimental, but almost exotic, almost like that's really different. And I'm not saying this cigar right here feels like formulaic, but also with that rich chestnut note. It's not a classic like roasted nut type of note. So picture like, yeah, no, it really changed it. I mean, really. Most of the time when you age a cigar that I have had, cigars that have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years on it, generally what happens is generally the blend really doesn't change, but it becomes like a little softer version of itself. Kind of like a little less piss and vinegar, a little like, if it was angry cigar, 5 years later, it's still kind of angry cigar, but maybe a little less angry. And generally the earth and or the spice starts taking a back note. And the notes in between might be more noticeable because they're more powerful, robust notes. And I'm talking about with cigars that, are generally on the stronger side, medium full to full strength. Um, so, but clearly this EPC tobacco, time affected it a lot more than like any of the AJ cigars I've smoked. So just keep that in mind. I'm glad I got to try the cigar with this much time on it, even though it's like tons amount of time, about 2 years, but it's enough time that in this case it really affected him. I think in my mind I still prefer the original intent, but it's still really enjoyable in this. But it's just more a question of like I almost don't know what I'm smoking. Nothing wrong with that, but just keep that in mind if you're gonna age a box of EP Carrillo pledges. A couple of years could really change that blend. Cigar is going to be a 4.65. It was enjoyable. It was very smooth, very nutty with the chestnuts. The wood note is very nice. The black pepper is not that intense at all. Really, I remember the cigar being more spicy, semi-funky. But the finish has been long and strong, which is really nice. So we're done with this. I want to thank Uncle Larry for sending this to me. And about 2 years really dynamically changed this cigar. Glad to put out this information. Not every cigar changes that drastically in around 2 years. Really quite surprised. Really. Like, it sounded like it just made a little softer version of this original intent. Like, the profile changed. Really quite surprised. I'll see you around. Stay fresh. Stay out of prison. No cigars in prison. Tents are for camping. It's the end of the world. Sodom and Gomorrah. Godzilla. Whatever. Antichrist. The end is here. Smoke your best shit. We're probably about to get nuked and or whatever. A fake alien invasion. Whatever. Another massive disease where they're going to want you to take something. Whatever. Throw you in a FEMA camp. Whatever. Just enjoy it. They're gonna have a civil war. They'll bring in the UN troops that are already here with the blue fucking helmets. Whatever. There's probably some guys here in the chat. Whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. It really is. It really is. Enjoy the collapse. I'll see you around.